In this video, we are going to data scrape. We are going to scrape so much data. You'll be able to scrape as much data as you want after watching this video. No, you do not need to be a coder. This technique will make you unstoppable. It looks a lot more difficult than it actually is. With the help of AI agents, you're going to gain confidence in creating your own scripts by the end of this tutorial. Without getting too technical, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of scraping data from your computer, spending minimal money. We're going to be using Crawl for AI, a free and open source Python script. We're going to be going through the hard way to do it and then the easy way to do it. We're going to be using Claude as our project manager co-pilot, and then we're going to be using Cursor AI agent as our coding co-pilot. We're going to use the Venice AI API for doing this data scraping because once you buy into the token network, you get API credits every single day without having to buy more. So if you're scraping thousands of resources and then processing them again and then generating images for them, then Venice AI is a very cost-efficient and friendly way of doing this, and it's not hard at all to implement. This is a great method to stay flexible. There's third-party scrapers everywhere, but it's very limited because you can only scrape the services they've already figured out for you, and then obviously you have to pay more money. By creating your own scraping scripts, which we're going to do in this video, it's so easy, you don't need any coding experience. You can really formulate the data you want to scrape from each resource you want in your directory. So I think you're really going to like this tutorial. We're going to go through 4 main phases here. We're going to prepare for our data scrape. We're going to scrape all the data. We're going to analyze the data. We're going to process the data. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start this tutorial. I'm going to assume you know exactly who your niche demographic is and what kind of resources you're going to scrape from the internet. If you haven't done any research, deep research especially, I recommend doing that. I do have an open deep research video you can check out on my channel. We're going to stay focused on the data scraping aspect of a directory build. We're going to start by playing with Claude to take a look at what this could possibly look like. I'm going to feed in my deep research and just have Claude make a demo. We want to create a website that offers value to people. So I'm just going to mess around with Claude here and say, hey, let's build this website. It's kind of directory. It's not really a directory. So it's taken the report and now it's literally just creating a prototype for this site. Core skills, data fluency, workflow automation, AI ethics and governance. Okay, this is cool. It's important to see a little demo of what this could be because it gets the gears moving. Once you start seeing the information presented in a way that we're used to, such as a website interface, then it helps us start getting creative to see what could be possible. So then as we scrape our data and later enrich it after we analyze it, it gives us more perspective to see the data in action. So then by the time we do the final build, the data really has meaning that we've been able to crack into. It's not just the, oh, SEO has a good point. No, it's like we do the data scraping, we find what people are saying, what people are thinking, what people want, and then we're able to really hone in on the value we can provide to these people. So I would say we're probably targeting these low-code people. This is actually turning into a pretty valuable resource here. Case studies. Wow. So this is great. And now I'm just going to say, hey, Claude, let's take this to the next level. What online data could be scraped to enhance the value proposition of this website? Data sources. Okay, so it's saying we could scrape course platforms, GitHub repositories. See, I like the GitHub repositories. It's much more communal. We could say, could Reddit be included here? So something like LinkedIn is going to be a little more difficult to scrape. What I'm probably going to end up doing is having the implementation plan just be very phasal. Just say like, what's the easiest thing to scrape? Then we scrape all that, we add it to the website, we make sure it's clean. Because if you try to scrape everything at once, there's so much that the Python data scraping script is going to have to know, and you're going to have to fine tune it, that it's like probably going to give you a headache and you're going to give up like I did twice before this video before you actually get it. So I'm going to make sure to include that in the implementation plan. Our SEO target keyword phrase for the entire site. Yeah, we'll just say best ways to learn AI. So what I'm doing is I'm just feeding Claude everything we need here to make a full PDR and an implementation plan. Now create a detailed PDR for my development team. I'm just going to say, let me save the PDR as a markdown file, remove the timeline and the team requirements. This will all be done with AI copilots. Cool. So now it's making me my final PDR. I gave it the name of the website. I'm going to go back to make a new chat now, and I'm going to say, create 2 different implementation plans for this project. Now we want to do 2 because AIs right now are super people pleasing. They're just like, oh, hey, I can do that. And then they don't do it right. Or they skip some really simple things and you have to like really be paying attention. That's okay. We just got to make sure that we're aware of that. So I'm going to say create 2 different plans so we can know that if one of them doesn't work right, maybe the other one will. And if not, then we got better things to do. We have more important things. We have more important fish to fry. Okay, so here we go. We've got a pretty thorough prompt here to make 2 different implementation plans. I was very clear about what tools we're using, what LLMs we have available to us, how data scraping should happen in phases to not overload the memory of my computer. Separate phases should be separated into scripts. All data should be scraped and added to a local database or JSON file. Actually, let's just say to a local CSV or JSON file before the AI is used to process the data. After all data is scraped, a different script should be run to process the data. All data should eventually be added to a Supabase database. All right, pretty detailed prompt here. So I gave it the PDR. I gave it some really detailed instructions for the implementation plan. Let's see how it goes. While we wait for that, I just want to tell you that the command line is super important when you're starting to build with AI, whether it's a directory, a website, or some kind of cool web app you want to create for new functionality for your users. So if you haven't gotten comfortable with the command line, check out the terminal navigation toolkit. There's a link down below. It's completely free. It's a step-by-step guide for getting your computer ready so you can start vibe coding, which is very important if you want to start harnessing AI the right way. Let's continue with the build. Okay, so Claude is saying I'll create 2 implementation plans, but searched for Crawl for AI repository. Tavily API features, good. Venice API AI open source. Plan emphasizes a highly modular architecture, good. I want modular because the more you include in one script, the more chances there are that it'll just fuck up and not work how you want it to. I say that from experience. Once again, this is the 3rd time I'm recording this video. So it's keeping in mind that the final database is going to use Supabase, but in the beginning it's going to be CSV. Map all potential data sources, categorize. Okay, so this looks great. This first plan, they call it modular phased approach. The second plan, Claude is calling continuous integration pipeline. A continuous pipeline where each step builds on the previous one with faster iterations and parallel development. So what I would do here is tell Cursor to just separate these weeks by like, we're going to do that. Now we're going to do this. We're not going to do them all at the same time. I like plan 1, the modular approach. Add that to the PDR. And we're almost there, people. We've done all our pre-production. The more you fine-tune this plan, the more you really get detailed on like each step of the way, the better this is going to turn out and the less headaches you're going to get. I promise you. So take your time with this part. We've got our PDR. We've got our Bible here for this project. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to open Cursor. We're basically making a new project. And here I'm going to paste the new PDR from Claude. And then now I'm going to make a new folder called resources. So we're going to download Crawl for AI, go to crawlforai.com. That's with a 4. It's actually kind of hard to get to the GitHub repository here, which is kind of ironic. But if we can get over to one of these links, you'll end up in the GitHub repo, click the code tab, and just download it because we're going to bring it into Cursor for the AI agent to know what's going on. And inside resources, I am going to put the Crawl for AI folder. I'm also going to make a docs folder where I can put the documentation for something like Crawl for AI. So we're just going to call this Crawl for AI docs inside of docs. And then also inside of docs, I'm going to make a new folder called Venice API.md. What else do we need? We need Tavily SDK.md. So Tavily SDK, I go to here, I go to Tavily. I'm going to click documentation and I'm going to go to the reference here. Actually, this is a really good opportunity to just use Crawl for AI to scrape Tavily.sdk. So watch what I'm going to do here. Put Crawl for AI in here. I'm going to say scrape these websites and put the data into markdown files inside the docs directory. So basically, I'm just saying, hey, get as much as you can here. Oh, there's an MCP server. That could be fun. Don't need it right now, though. Chains up here. That's cool, too. Wow. So Tavily is going to be something fun to explore, but we don't need it for now. Okay, so we've got all the docs for Tavily, SDK reference for Python. We need the Venice API specs, error codes, chat. We don't really need chat that much. API keys, generate API key, rate limit logs, characters. Oh, that's cool. You can use their characters. Huh. That's cool. Venice chat has a bunch of characters you can chat with, and they all have different functions. Look, there's Batman. Anyway, so the API, you can access that. I think that should be enough. We've got enough for the APIs. We've got Tavily, we've got Venice, we've already got Crawl for AI in there. So I'm saying, hey, Cursor, we're going to use Crawl for AI in this resources folder, and you're going to scrape all of these URLs and put them into their own files. So we have them as a knowledge base for this project. So we say Tavily, we say Venice. Let's see how it does. Cool, so it's making new folders. I was thinking of asking it, hey, make folders, but don't even need to. So in the meanwhile, I'm just gonna kind of delete these other MD files I made because this is gonna be much more complicated. So now you can see over here in Cursor, we have, in docs, we have Crawl for AI, which has all the documentation here, which is a whole bunch of markdown files. And then we have Tavily, we have Venice. So let's see what it's doing here. Scrape docs, this is for Tavily. All right, I'm just gonna accept it all and hope that it's good. Yeah, okay, so it made the README and said, this directory contains the scrape documentation. This is great. It's organizing everything, so any AI agent can just read it, and then it just knows to check our little knowledge base and be like, oh, hey, we gotta fix this. So it's gonna do this on autopilot. This is really valuable, guys. Crawl for AI and Cursor can make you unstoppable. You can be an AI captain that navigates the whole world without any issues. So let's run that command again. I'm all out of Cursor credits, so this is actually going slower than it's supposed to, if you can even believe that. It's still going pretty fast. I think it refreshes tomorrow. This is also good for Cursor to get to know how Crawl for AI works, because we're about to use it for the whole project. So this is still like in a pre-production phase, planning. We haven't even started doing anything for this website. We're just preparing our tools. Boom. Okay, it's scraping. Need a little finessing, but it took care of it. You can see it scraped everything here. And now we just go check out what's going on inside our docs folder. And you can see that we have the API specs, we have the list, we have the Swagger, we have Tavily, Python, reference. Great. So that's all enough. I mean, this all the menu stuff we could have skipped, and we could have even told the Crawl for AI to skip that stuff, but that's okay. I'm just going to do it manually. Okay. So now we've got all the docs in here that I think we're going to need, and it's all very clear. So that's awesome. Now we're ready to get started, and this is where the fun really begins. So let's start a new chat just to preserve memory. And we're going to send this to the chat as context. And we're going to say, let's start building this website. So we're going step by step here, thanks to our very clean PDR and prompt. And we're going to vibe build this data scraping app and eventually going to vibe code the website. So let's do this. I made a source folder, and everything else is just kind of going to be on the outside. Even this scrape docs script, I'm going to move that into docs in case we need it again. We're going to add another tool. I don't think we will, but just in case. And we're kind of clean here. We just have a requirements folder. All right, there's phase one. Now we run the command where we make all these folders. All right, phase one is done. Before we move on, we want to save our changes in a way that we can revert back to them in case we mess things up. I'm going to say git initialize, git init. It's going to initialize an empty Git repository. If you do not have Git installed, you're going to need to install it. Sign up for the 5-day bootcamp or check the terminal navigation toolkit down below to learn how to install Git. It's important. We're going to stage all the changes, git commit, and we're going to say preliminary environment and infrastructure created. And normally we would say like git push, but we don't actually have, we're not sending it anywhere. We're just doing it locally. I'm not making a GitHub repo from this. But now in Cursor, I can go over here to the Git version control tab. And you can see now that we have, oh, hey, the preliminary environment, and it's on the main branch. And now when we make new changes, I can actually just come back here and say, hey, we're going to check this out. We're going to go back. Or I could say view changes, like from the new one to where we're at now, like what's happened, what's different, and it'll show me all the differences. We actually don't have any differences because this is the first commit we've made. Maybe I should have even made it earlier, but I think this is a good point. Awesome. So would you like to proceed with phase 1.2 data storage infrastructure? Yes, let's proceed to 1.2. Now, in full transparency, it would probably be responsible of us to actually go through what was just built and make sure it's good. This was just setting up the environment, which means the environmental variables, like what we're going to need, the git ignore, I mean, the readme, the requirements, the folders, all the directories here, and the scripts we're going to need. It looks okay to me, but in each phase, it's to do this the right way, you're going to kind of want to know what you're doing. But we're vibe building, so I'm just trusting that it's doing things the right way. We did a lot of prep. We pre-produced the hell out of this, and I think we did a good job. So we're just going to trust that it's doing the right thing in the right way. Now, there also is a setting to just automatically accept changes. At this point, I trust Cursor. I don't think it's injecting malicious code into my machine. I don't recommend you enable this until you're comfortable. I mean, it's a big deal, just letting some random machine owned by some company do whatever you want. But if you're keeping an eye on what's going on, you'll know that it's not like malicious. And I'm just going to allow it to do it. Compilation commands, SEO. Okay, let's move on. Phase 1.3. Okay, and I've allowed auto run mode now, so I might not even need to be involved here. This is the real way to build with Cursor. You have a really good plan, and then you just put it on autopilot. And if the plan is good enough and the communication is clear enough, you can build whatever you want. We're already there. People think AI is coming. No, it's already here. You just have to learn how to do this. It's crazy. Okay, so phase 1.3 is finished. So let's see what's next. It looks like now we're on to phase 2, which according to Claude would be week 3. So in just a few minutes, we've done 2 weeks worth of work. Phase 1 was basically making the base code. So according to our implementation plan, we're in week 3 now, and we're ready to start scraping. So this is important. Now, Cursor has asked, are we ready to implement Coursera, which would be going into phase 2.2, but we don't want to do that yet. First, we want to map our data sources, categorize those sources, analyze the page structures, and create a priority queue. So I'm going to go back here. So in our implementation plan, we're now looking at phase 2.1, which is about resource source identification. Because basically, we don't want to be just scraping any data, obviously. We want to be scraping the best data we can. At this stage in our process, all we really know is that like there's courses out there on Coursera, Udemy, there's GitHub repos, there's Reddit. So what we need to do, and Claude is going to help us, is we're going to create a value priority matrix. Basically, it's going to give us a list of sources to consider here. Like I don't really like these. Community sources are good. I think those are going to be even more valuable for what I'm imagining here in my head for this vibe build. Content publications, Medium maybe. YouTube channels, definitely, but that's going to be a whole nother level of functionality that we're going to have to do later. For each source, we should access data richness, yes, relevance, exactly. So then I gave a list of data sources, which undoubtedly came from some other place, another Claude chat. I can't find it now. But I said, okay, we're going to use Google search results, and we're going to use structured learning platforms, and we're going to use like community places. We added AI platform documentation here. I don't really want to use it, but it's for now in this stage, it's there. Reddit communities, I think this is going to be a big one, especially the right subreddits. These are not the ones we want. We don't want machine learning. We don't want R artificial, maybe Ask AI. But we got to get to know the subreddits we really want to explore. GitHub discussion forums, maybe. But as you can see now, AI-focused YouTube channels. As you can see now, this scraping process is going to be complicated. We'll get into that, but for now, what we really want to focus on is our plan. And that's exactly what Claude is going to help us with. So here is our priority matrix, according to Claude. So we got Coursera, Udemy edX, and then basically it gives all these a value for what the data is worth. The complexity of the scraping, which by the way, Coursera is more like 5 or 10. That was not easy. High quality curated business focus. So it's got our matrix here. And it's got YouTube at the bottom. It's got Reddit at the bottom. Now, another thing to remember is while I think the YouTube AI channels will be really valuable, we got to remember this space moves so fast that we got to make sure that the data we do scrape can be somewhat evergreen. So that's something we also have to explore as we go, something to keep in mind as we're in this process. So Coursera is going to be the first scraper we have to build. we're going to need to work on refine this priority queue. But I'm bringing it up now for you to see, because this is something with every step of the scraping, every step of the new deep research we're about to do, we might rearrange the value here. We might see, okay, there's better value in this versus that. We're going to do that as data driven as possible instead of just taking shots in the dark. So I'm going to say everything is built. Now, how do I prompt my Copilot to start scraping? And now our second Copilot, we have like a project manager Copilot and a coding Copilot. We need to provide specific instructions. Here's how to prompt. Okay, great. It knows what we're doing. Okay, so now we're going to get into data scraping. This is not only important for the resources we want to put on our Value Bridge website, but also because the reviews we're going to get from things like courses or whatever these resources are all around the internet, like Reddit threads and people talking, that's going to be valuable data for us to later use an AI LLM to say like, hey, what do people think about this? What do they want? What are their pain points? What are they after? What's the dream transformation, the dream outcome that they want to achieve by wanting to learn AI? So as we vibe build this business, we want that data. So as we start the scraping section, keep that in mind, that we're scraping for multiple reasons and that perhaps we're going to scrape resources we're not even going to use in the website. I'm starting to wonder what I'm even going to do with Coursera resources on this website. But then after I do the scrape and I see the reviews, I'm like, okay, there's some valuable data here that can help me enhance this website. So we're going to look at two different methods for scraping data with Crawl for AI. One is the easy way, one is the hard way, one is the cheap way, one is the more expensive way. The first is using just Python, the Crawl for AI script, just going like it's raw dogging it with code. The second is using the LLM module inside of Crawl for AI, and the results are a lot better, it's a lot easier, but it's a little more expensive. So strap in and remember that there's time codes in the YouTube video, so if you don't care about learning the hard way, just skip to the easy way. I'm going to say implement the Coursera scraper. Follow these steps, create a data source manifest file, develop source-specific instructions. All right, let's see what happens here. This is awesome. This is going to be a cool website. Okay, so this is cool because now in the docs folder, it said, okay, if you're looking through Coursera, this is how we're going to do it. This is what the CSS, the HTML container is like, the links, the titles. Wow, that's really crazy. Key elements, course header, title, description, difficulty. Well, I think we should try this out. Yeah, so it's going to search for AI courses, and then later we're going to process, like, is this the kind of course we want to go on AI Captains? I really like how it's organizing the data. This is something that was missing from my previous directory video and also the previous two iterations of this video. But it looks like we're going to have a really solid database here. So next I'm having Claude tell me which search terms we should use. Seems like we are not finding enough courses. Here are some notes. Use these search terms. So we're doing a little debugging here. Great. So now you can see we found 8 courses for AI for business, 11 for AI for entrepreneurs, 10 for practical AI, 7 for AI basics. So now we're getting in the weeds here. Now we're doing some next level data scraping. So the scraper's having some problems with Coursera. It can't find some data, which is why it's coming back empty. And so what I'm doing is I'm going in manually and I'm saying, okay, like for example, it couldn't find, is this for beginners or who? So I or advanced, it couldn't find it. So what I do here to go about this manually is, you see, these are all important information here. So I go to beginner level, for example, I click inspect, and then there we have all the selectors for the beginner level. So I just take a screenshot of that and I feed it to Cursor and I say, this is the data you're looking for. And then it says, oh, okay, cool. And then it solved that problem because it's having other problems as well. So it's saying duration is not detected, price is not detected. We don't need the duration, so I'll say description falls under read more link because you have to click read more. That's in about, right? Where did the description go? Yeah, read more. So I told it that. No prerequisites. There is no duration. And then for the topics, because it said it can't find the topics, I said just check the modules. And inside the module content, you'll see lots of topics. And then later the AI will convert those topics to like proper data. And scrape their content and details for later processing. Ensure we are scraping reviews as well as the instructor name and instructor ratings. Great. And then I think, what else did it have? Prerequisites are empty. I think I said there are no prerequisites on Coursera. Topics it should hopefully fix. Description it should fix. So this is very important. You can't just expect the agent to do it all for you. You gotta go through, especially on something like Coursera, you gotta go through and say, hey, if you can't find the reviews, check for the text reviewed on. Check for this star icon, show it the source, which in this case didn't really help. But the more data you can feed it, because you have eyes, we're not completely unnecessary for the AIs to do their work yet. They still need us. All right, we got the Coursera test working. Now, Coursera may not have been the best resource hub to start with because it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of drop downs and stuff, which is not necessarily easy for the Crawl for AI scraper, or maybe it is, but I didn't know what to tell it. But I spent over 2 hours fixing this. I just want you to know. So don't be discouraged. This is not impossible, but you're going to have to do this for every source. Fine tune it. It's going to be worth it because you're going to get hundreds, if not thousands, of resources from these scripts, and you'll get better at it with each time. But the point is look, AI for everyone. This is it. And let's see what it got. Comprehensive non-technical course covering these things. Difficulty level beginner, 6 hours, price none, topics none. I hope you get the point now. You have to fine tune it as a human. It takes time. Don't expect any of this to be super automated and super perfect the first time. So now let's jump into the easier way. I obviously cut out a lot of the debugging and hardships I encountered in the hard way. So let's jump into the easier way now using LLMs. So as it goes, the Coursera website is kind of crazy because there's a lot of CSS selectors that are just kind of randomized, perhaps for this very reason, so it's not so easy to scrape, or perhaps it's just automated. But in general, if you look at, okay, there's a div that opens up, and then there's another div that opens up. There's a lot going on, and it's just kind of confusing for the standard Python script. So Crawl for AI also has an LLM ability. So what we could do is just use the LLM extraction and use Venice or Anthropic or OpenAI, whatever it is, to get the page and then use the AI to look at everything and say, oh, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want, which is kind of the point, right? That's the whole point of using AI. So now that we've tried it the more traditional way and it's not really working how we want it, it's having all these problems. I've been going through this loop forever. And as soon as we solve one problem, it makes another one. So I'm going to say, look, I brought this extraction folder. So if we go into the docs, Crawl for AI, MDV2, that's the actual docs here, the information. And you'll see over here in advanced, we have LLM strategies. So I'm going to say, hey, let's just use LLM extraction. Why don't we try a different approach and use LLM extraction with Crawl for AI for Coursera? And maybe more efficient to parse the page, the resources, and processing the CSS and HTML. Now it's literally going to rewrite most of what we've already done, but first it's going to do some research. It's going to implement an LLM-based extraction for Coursera courses, would be more robust than trying to parse complex CSS. Yes. Here's how we can modify the code. Another point to remember here is when in the beginning we were saying, hey, cursor, here's all the documentation, it's looking at it, but it doesn't necessarily keep it all in the memory for optimal code production. So we have to know what we're working with as well. And as it happened, I made an assumption oh, just use LLM, like Claude, we made the PDR, it'll be fine. But it obviously didn't. And it was a poor assumption on my part, wasted a bunch of time. We learned. So now we're rewriting it with the LLM extraction method, and it should go a lot smoother, a lot easier, and a lot faster, albeit potentially more resource intensive, meaning more expensive if you're not using Venice. Quick break in the build for a big announcement. I'm opening up a Discord community. It's gonna be a place where if you're interested in these tutorials or any tutorials you find on YouTube, but you're having trouble because the guy who made the video forgot to mention one little thing because it was so obvious to him, come to the community and you can ask the questions. It's going to be a powerful place for builders like you and me, entrepreneurs, place to network, stuff like that. Check out the link below. I'll see you there. And it did it. So it seemed to work. And then it's got the duration, the rating, the total reviews, positive reviews. Great. So the last thing we want to do is just make sure it scrapes 20 reviews, 10 reviews positive, 10 reviews negative. So you see how much easier this is using the LLM? That is why we use Crawl for AI. And now you can see in this little time lapse how as the script runs, it's using little Venice compute unit credits, which I have that's over here on the right side of the screen. Pretty neat, but we know it's working because it's using the LLM API credit. Scraping complete. So now we move on to scraping GitHub. We know that GitHub is going to have a lot of important information. So I asked Claude here, let's write a prompt now to continue with phase, I think it's 2.1 or 2.2, and let's find our keywords. So now we're getting a whole prompt here to give cursor from Claude. And once again, this conversation, Claude is very aware of what we're building at this point. So let's just confirm that it's not messing up anything. Our handle pagination for both repositories, search results, and discussions, good. Use crawl for AI's browser automation mode to handle JavaScript rendering. Oh, there's JavaScript rendering. So we'll see if I don't end up just using the LLM extraction again, like I did with Coursera for the second and third phases. All right, so we're just going to copy this whole thing. In Cursor, I've given it our PDR, and I'm just sending all of that. Start writing a script to scrape GitHub. All right, now it's all there. I'm going to give it, once again, just in case it forgets, we have the crawl for AI docs. I'm going to put that in there. All right, so it's got the PDR, it's got the crawl for AI, it's got our prompt from Claude. Let's let her rip. Now it's building a brand new script. Before, Coursera had its own script in this. Now we're having a GitHub script. And before I forget, we should update our Git repo with the working Coursera scripts and all the data. In case something goes horribly wrong, we can revert to it. Git add and git commit. Coursera finished. Building GitHub scraper. And we're not pushing to GitHub or anywhere. We don't have a remote origin. We're doing it all here. So you can see how it added all of this to Git now. In case something goes wrong, we have over here in version control, we can go back. So go back to all the different commits I've made so far, which admittedly is not as many as it probably should be. So the GitHub scraper worked. Wow. So we got 90, we got just under 900 repositories here of data. So here goes the Reddit scrape. It's actually going really well. It's been remarkably easy, to be honest. You see how fast it's going. It's not using any LLM. But if we look at these, buy from EU, AI tools for business, US versus EU. Okay, so we're gonna do our favorite, git add all and git commit Reddit scraper working, pre-scraped. So as this finishes up, the last thing I just want to say is it's kind of cool because in this project now, I can use this for so many other projects. I've built, let's see, a Coursera scraper, Reddit scraper, and a GitHub scraper. And essentially, the farther we go, the more scrapers we're going to have. As one final quick data source, I scraped Google, the top reviews for our search terms. And I think I have quite a few results in here. And this is all just the top of Google. So I'm going to scrape all of these as well. We have a little bit of content, and it looks like there's a score as well. In a perfect world, I would analyze all of these first before going in and deciding to scrape it. But for now, I just think it would be fun to have some data points from Google. So I've set up a new script, crawl each URL using crawl for AI, convert it to Markdown, and then have Venice extract structured information about AI learning and building resources, and then it puts it all into new JSON files. So yeah, we're gonna have one last data point, and we're gonna have, I think, over 2,000 listings that we then got to start sorting through with some AI help, and then we'll make our website. So I've got my final scraper finishing up for this version of this video and this build. And now that I've gotten all of the research, the market analysis finished with the deep research, and we've created a high ticket offer, we kind of have a good idea of our sub niche here. I think it's a good time to start exploring what this can look like. So first, we need to clean up the data so then we can use Claude, ChatGPT to start finding meaning in the data, patterns, pain points, common experiences. Let's really try to find what this world is all about. Now, I might not have the best data set to do that right now, but it does take some time to do these scrapes, and I do want to finish this tutorial video. So once again, how you use this tutorial is going to be super contingent on you and your creativity and your analysis skills. Okay, so next up, we're going to analyze the data. I include this in the whole data scraping umbrella because the analysis by an LLM might show you something that you might want to go back and re-scrape or scrape differently or realize you don't want this data at all, or find a new resource, etc. And as you're about to see, the early analysis is going to be the first step in the enrichment of the data, which I'm going to cover in the next video when we turn the data into a website. We're going to enrich the data then. But for now, we're going to start analyzing it with LLM so we can get a feel for if we even want to keep this data. We're going to start with the Reddit threads. I don't even know how much Reddit it's going to give us. It's giving us a lot of Reddit. So we're going to start with the Reddit. So just as looking at the Coursera reviews helped us understand, okay, people don't want lead magnets, they don't want confusing material, and they want good assignments, then now we can look at the Reddit stuff like at a social layer almost and be like, okay, what are people's experiences? I don't know, I haven't looked at it at all. I'm seeing RAG with LLM project code walkthrough for beginners. Great, awesome community thread, huh? Looking for the best resources to level up in Python, AI, ML, and data science. We're going to have an AI look at it in a much more comprehensive way than we ever could, but first we got to organize the data. So here in Claude, I gave it the PDR in a new chat, and I said, okay, what phase are we at? Phases 1 to 3 focus on setup and data collection. So let's open up the PDR here, and let's just remind ourselves where we're at. Phase 1, we finished earlier. Phase 2 is the learning resources. We got all this. We did not follow this correctly, but we got all the data, and we obviously haven't finished YouTube and things like that, but we'll get there in another version. So now we're on phase 4. We've got all our data, phase 4 in our PDR, and that means data processing and AI analysis. And this is going to take some time too, but what's important here is that we know where we are and we have our plan, our Bible, our PDR. So we go back to this as a way to start analyzing our data. Very simple way to do this, which could just be to go into Claude, or ChatGPT, make a new project, and then upload all of our data to the knowledge base. But that's going to be that's going to cost a lot of time that we don't really want to do. And it's just not going to be fun. So what we're going to do is start writing Python scripts that use Venice AI, or open source. Probably we're going to use a lot of DeepSeek in this next section. We're going to use DeepSeek to start processing and analyzing this data. So let's get a prompt for our AI coding copilot to begin phase 4. Okay, so now our copilot manager here is going to tell us what to tell our copilot coder here, which is always a fun kind of a workflow here, because what I write right here is probably not going to be as good as what Claude can prompt with. So here's a comprehensive prompt. All right, so we're going to copy that in. We're going to make sure that Cursor in our new chat has our PDR. Use Venice AI, open AI API, see Venice. Okay, perfect. So it's going to put it in data processed, GitHub, then Reddit, then Coursera. Where will the analysis file go? Okay, so data analysis. Okay, cool. Let's run the script. Remember, we can always do this again. Depends on how serious this project is for you, right? You want to get it right, but you got to also build. And I am a big believer in feedback loops. So the more you do data scraping and deep research without having any results, there were some aha moments oh, cool, we can do that for the high ticket offer. We can do that. Here's who we're talking to. That's cool, but there's nothing like seeing your website with all the data you've been scraping, all this hard work. It's just, there's nothing like it. Finally being able to see it on a browser. There's something special about that. So once we have a minimum amount of data for a minimum viable product, let's make that minimum viable product, and then we can start exploring to see if it's worth to scrape the next platforms or go deeper into analysis or whatever. Once again, we're vibe building here. It's gotta feel good. So here we go. So what's really cool to notice here, once again, I know I've said this a few times, but when we see the data, the comments, the reviews, it's just like this raw human data that we can glean so much from. There's something we're going to be able to touch here. I don't know what it is exactly. And that little something is going to be what makes AI Captains an awesome website. Altogether, minus some processing files, it looks like we have probably a little over 1,700 resources. Coursera, GitHub, Google for our search terms, the top 25 results for each search term, I think, Reddit, and YouTube. There's a lot more out there. Okay, I was halfway rushing because I really wanted to explore this vibe build process and make this video. But what's really important now is to start seeing the data, playing with the data, seeing what experiences can be created with this data, starting with a basic directory website and then creating functionality from there. And then the deep research video where I talk about the research side of all of this and working back and forth with Claude to figure out what we're building. I go deeper into that aspect of it, how we're going to do basically market-driven analysis here to build something with some assumptions. We don't know what it's going to be. Once again, you can't really know how a product or a service is going to be received until people see it. So we're obviously doing the best we can, but as far as providing value goes, from our deep research and from everything we've scraped, we have a good idea of what people are after. So as soon as this data processing script is done, we'll be ready to start building a website. So we've done the analysis. There's still more analyzing to go, but it's on the next layer. So we're going to call that processing. So now we're going to go through everything we have, clean it up, get it ready to present on a website. This is before we send it to a database or anything, but we just prepare everything. Final phase, we've got all our data scraped, and now it's time to process it, make it clean, and put it into organized files that we can later turn into a database for our website. One thing that's really cool about what is going to happen here is this processing script doesn't just clean it up, saying, okay, let's make it the similar format between GitHub, Reddit, Coursera, JSON files. No, it's actually calculating scores. So for Coursera, right? Let's go through all of it. So for GitHub, successfully process the AI business assistant repository, analyze the README for technical depth, okay? It also gets the likes and the stars from the GitHub repository. Reddit post, processes the AI business automation post, analyze topic, sentiment, and technical depth. Coursera, it calculates the subjectivity and the positive sentiment. YouTube, it makes a quality score and engagement score based on all these metrics like the comments, the views, the like count. And then it identifies it as like, what kind of content is it? Is it subjective? Is it objective? Is it a tutorial? And then the Google results, we just searched, small business, AI, all these search terms, and we just found blah, blah, blah. Subjective content. Most of it kind of is like listicles. SEO feels so outdated. And that's something I'm going to talk about more in the Vibe Builders context is SEO feels like the grandmother top of the funnel entry point. YouTube, X, these are TikTok, these are the real tops of the funnel. So this is part of what I'm exploring here, and that's part of the Vibe Build process. So that was all in the test, and now it's running the full one. If I show you the test, we can see here, this is the chat it made. See, it's using DeepSeek, and we even get the thinking from DeepSeek. That's kind of neat. So it calculates the polarity, the subjectivity, the content sentiment. It's kind of neat what you can do with data here, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it. Claude and Cursor basically have built-in mechanisms for processing through data, and I've never really gone that deep in processing data before. I've obviously scraped data, worked with it to put on the web into databases, but this has been kind of fun because it's not just that Cursor and Claude are like doing it, but I'm asking, okay, how are these things calculated? And then it tells me, and I say, okay, I don't like that. Let's do this instead. So for example, on YouTube, it basically makes a score based on the engagement, the content itself, technical analysis of the content, and then the comments, which is kind of neat. It has a different process it follows for each platform, for Reddit, Coursera, GitHub, Google, and YouTube. So I think that's really cool. It's something I'm going to get better at, and the more projects like this I do. Like I said, we have about 1,700-ish resources here. I think that's a great starting point for this directory. A lot of those are going to have to go, but I'm learning more about what this is going to be, which we're now going to get into as we start bringing our deep research together in with our scraped data analysis. So that's how we can scrape our data as automated as possible, remaining flexible in ways that third-party services can't always do. In the very next video in this series, we're going to go over enhancing that data in functional ways for the website we're going to build. And we're going to build it. We're going to generate images. We're going to calculate new scores for community engagement. And then eventually, after all the little parts are in place, I'm going to launch a huge build video, which takes you from the very beginning, idea generation, deep research, all the way through data scraping, into processing the data, enhancing it, and then putting it online as this cool new, I want to call it a next generation directory, because it's not a simple directory. They don't have to be simple directories anymore. It can be a full-on community. It can be something with advanced functionality for users. We can vibe code anything these days, and we do not have to be coders to do it. So make sure to subscribe to catch these next videos. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for leaving a like and comment if this video was valuable for you, and I'll see you soon.